I've been in the restaurant and service industry for roughly around 10 years. And for the coffee side, I've been in the coffee side for about 3.5 years now. I worked at a boba tea place back when I was in California. After that, I actually went to culinary school. Was pretty interested in more of the specialty craft scene. Ended up doing more coffee and pastries. Opened up a shop in Tempe. Got really into the coffee side after that. Latte art started just by roaming around other shops. I had a couple of friends back in California that had a specialty coffee shop like this one and was always kind of intrigued on what they were doing. After that, it was just a lot of watching videos and a lot of failed attempts. Right off the bat, I think most barista goes in and is like, I'm gonna pour something pretty. And that's kind of my mentality on it. What I like to tell new barista that wants to get into latte art is not to worry about the latte art. Latte art is just a byproduct of doing your job correctly. Pay more attention to just like steaming the milk correctly and getting your product as best as you can. And always start with the basics before advancing to the next level. One of the most basic and maybe one of the hardest is just a basic heart. People always underestimate hearts because it's just so simple, so clean, and everybody usually starts off with the heart. But you ignore it for so long that you end up forgetting your basics. You can never really do anything amazing if you end up skipping the basics. So the heart is probably where I usually try to start people off. Some of the more difficult patterns are the ones that actually look the easiest and the cleanest. Getting it symmetrical, getting it good contrast is probably the hardest part of pouring art. The more symmetrical and the cleaner, more contrast the lines are, the more aesthetically pleasing it is. So making it look effortless and making it look simple is probably the hardest thing. Then some of the ones that a lot of people like to try to do because it looks a lot harder is like things like the swans. They look really hard. They are really hard when you first start, but they're actually end up being one of the more simple patterns to do once you actually learn all of your basics. But trying to keep just a really simple 3 to 4 tier tulip, I feel is much harder. Or a very clean rosetta is a much harder pattern to do. Any drink with a milk foam base, we can usually draw art on. So cappuccino, latte, cortado, flat white, anything like that, matcha, you can essentially pour art onto. Things gets a little bit more difficult when you get to alternative milk because it doesn't steam the same way as whole milk does. There's not enough fat in there to actually get that foam nice and just like creamy looking. If you practice enough, you can get alternative milk to look good. It's just very difficult. I found out there was a big culture in competition. We end up calling it throwdowns. It's 2 barista would go in and 1 come out. So it's a one-on-one heads-up battle. There's usually 3 judges, and best 2 out of 3 wins. And everybody pours 1 round, and it's a bracket system. So the last one standing after how many people, usually it's a 64, 32, 128 bracket is the winner. When I first started, I went and saw my first throwdown as just a spectator. And I saw these amazing people that just blew me away. I didn't know that coffee can be anything like that. I didn't know there was even competition that allows you to do these type of art with this medium. It was pretty inspiring right off the bat. There's a big local scene for baristas, and this is kind of like small things to kind of unwind, kind of just relax and have fun. I started with that, got really into it, wanted to be the best, so tried really hard getting better. Afterward, I started competing in other aspects too, like brewing and roasting and whatnot. Went to different cities, found that other city had a much bigger scene than we do here in Arizona. Started doing a lot of throwdowns there, seeing so many people that are fantastic at what they do, and look for them for inspiration and guidance to get better myself. From there, I just slowly wanted to be better than the next person, just competitive nature that I usually have. Afterward, I went around searching for bigger throwdowns, things that were a little bit more towards bigger prizes, bigger bragging rights, just a lot more talented people in one spot that usually travel all around the U.S. I just did one of the bigger one in the U.S. It was a throwdown in Coffee Fest. That one was also in L.A. There was a lot of people there, a lot of people that flew in from different part of the state, a lot of people from New York, a lot of people from Denver. There was also a lot of international competitors. So it was quite the experience. I got to meet a lot of people that I just really admire and was just thriving to be as good as they were. It was emotional in a sense, where these people that I've been following and admiring for years, that I'm on the same stage as them now and actually being competitive against all of these great people. I get pretty obsessive in things that I do, so I ended up buying a lot of equipment that normal people would buy just to practice at home. I have an espresso machine at home, grinders. It's pretty easy for me to practice at home, but it's never the same doing at home as it is in a shop environment or in a throwdown environment. I ended up taking a long time to gather information, snippets here and there, and starting to make things to my own. What judges are looking for when we pour our art is symmetry, contrast, aesthetic, and degree of difficulty. So symmetry, left and right being the same. Contrast is how much the white is to your espresso, so how much separation you have between those, the foam and the espresso. Degree of technicality is a little hard to really explain because there's almost a biased judgment on that. Some things might be difficult for one person but might be really easy for another person. Also, the other biased part would be the aesthetic. Is it aesthetically pleasing? With the aesthetically pleasing, we usually try to see if to your eye it looks good or not. You have to be pretty subjective on it. If you want to see competition, I would say just follow all of your local coffee shops. If they ever do a competition, they usually will post up in their social media and will tell you the time and place. And every shop are more than inviting guests that aren't competing to just watch. So that's a great way to just get your toe wet a little bit. And if you want to compete but don't know how it is, you could go watch one or two before you do so. And usually it's pretty open to everyone. So if you're not like a seasoned pro, you can still go out and compete with some of your local barista. With the bigger throwdowns, there's places like Coffee Fest that does one of the bigger throwdown that invites everybody from around the world to compete. So those ones are usually when you find the crazier art and just like people putting 100% of their passion into it. Here at Peixoto, we usually try to do a throwdown about once a year, and it's usually for our anniversary. It's usually around late January to about early February. So if you're ever interested, always just check our social media and we'll have a lot more information when it comes closer. I feel like I'm pretty bad at art. It's not a medium that I feel that I'm very comfortable with. I like doodling and whatnot, but like it never comes out the way I imagine it. Other mediums that I do feel like I do pretty well is wood and ceramics. I do a lot of woodworking, mainly turning. And also, I do a lot of ceramic cups, bowls, but anything that spins, I guess, I feel like I do pretty well at. Working at a cafe is perfect for me just because I love the food service industry. So interaction with customers is something that I enjoy doing. Also, just trying to be good at something is also something else that I enjoy doing this compared to like doing at home. I get to share the thing that I love to everybody that walks in. But sometimes it does feel a little crushing when they don't take a look at it or just cover it or just stir it. Especially when you feel like you just did something fantastic and it's like one of those where like this is the best thing I've done all day type of deal. I usually feel pretty happy and joyful when I get a customer that comments that this is really pretty, wow, I can't believe you did something like that. I don't really show it most of the time. I kind of just keep it inside. I usually try not to be super excited over it, even though inside I'm screaming and just like pretty happy about it. Yeah. I post a lot of my work on Instagram. Kimhak.em is my Instagram handle. Very simple. I do post a lot of my coffee stuff, personal life stuff on there, and a lot of my personal life is coffee, so a lot of it is latte art. And when I have to practice for bigger events, I usually post a lot of latte arts. Like way too much. I don't think anybody wants to see that many. A lot of people think that coffee is just like black coffee or like a latte that comes in and out. But if you dig deeper, there's a whole bigger community that are more than accepting and welcoming to everybody. And I do wish that a lot of people seek out more specialty coffee and look into the specialty coffee world just because it's very interesting. There's a lot of niches within the community that people can enjoy.